So as you talked about, we've been involved with some federal fireplaces. So we sweep and inspect the 62 wood burning fireplaces at the Capitol building every year. We repaired 9 of the 15 fireplaces at the U.S. Supreme Court. I was just there this past Wednesday. They're now trying to repair the other 6 that we couldn't do because we didn't have access to them. That's going to be a pain in the ass. And then there's 13 fireplaces in 9 buildings at Camp David. We were hired by HIT Contracting, and we restored all of those fireplaces for the President of the United States at Camp David. We restored the fireplaces and furnace flues for the Joint Chiefs of Staff at Fort Myer and a whole bunch of other people when we were there. We're doing stuff like this all the time. This is what my company looked like a couple years ago. We've got a few more trucks, another dump truck, and a couple less people. We're running a little bit leaner, a little bit meaner right now. So one of the things they wanted me to talk about is fire science. So we're going to talk a little bit about fire science. Fire is the rapid oxidation process or chemical reaction involving fuel, oxygen, and heat, known as the fire triangle. If you're from the fire service, you probably talk about the tetrahedron, but this is what I learned. The reaction releases heat and light, with flames being the most visible manifestation of combustion. Fuel, any substance that can burn, like wood, gasoline, or paper. The oxidizing agent typically found in the air that reacts with the fuel. And then the energy required to raise the fuel to the ignition temperature, the point at which combustion starts. Let's talk about the 3 stages of wood combustion as it really relates to the wood in someone's house. So drying or moisture evaporation is the first stage. Initially, the wood's moisture content is evaporated, requiring energy and cooling. And the sounds that you'll hear are hissing and popping. This could also be in your fireplace. Pyrolysis, that's the process that breaks down the complex molecules, and the ignition temperature of the wood is lowered. This is where charring begins. The typical ignition temperature of southern pine, which is what we use commonly in this market, is between 400 and 500 degrees Fahrenheit. After pyrolysis, southern pine can ignite at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Back when I was a shave tail, they were telling us that it was 150 degrees, and that they had a study that they did at Warnock Kersey in a lab where they got southern pine to ignite at 150 degrees. That's what we always thought it was, and that's why it's so crazy, and that's why we're so concerned about, fire safety in people's homes as it relates to the fireplaces and wood stoves. But I couldn't find that, so it's gone. Maybe it's never true. All I found is 200 degrees when I looked. Final stage of combustion, the wood has transformed into charcoal, and the gases are driven from the wood and burned first. Heat production begins here. Then the carbon in the charcoal is burned. Incomplete combustion of wood, creosote is produced during incomplete combustion. You got a wood stove, and you've got that wood stove dialed in, and you go outside and you look for the wood smoke, you don't see any. All you see is the heat signature because you're achieving complete combustion. If you're in an open fireplace, you can't control how much air is coming in and how much air is going out. So you're going to have incomplete combustion, and that's what produces creosote, and that's why we sweep chimneys to get the creosote out. Okay, fireplace and chimney construction. We'll talk about masonry, modular, and factory built. We'll just look at the picture. Guy's building a stone fireplace. He's building his firebox there with fire brick. And, I don't like the way he's doing his corners. Any of you that are in masonry probably don't like the way he's doing his corners either. Everything should be tied together, but regardless. Let's talk about the firebox. So the hearth thickness, that's the inner hearth inside the fireplace, and the outer hearth got to be 4 inches thick. Fire brick fireplace walls, 8 inches thick. If you want to use regular brick instead of fire brick, then it's got to be 10 inches thick. The firebox is supposed to be 20 inches deep, although you see them all over the place, 16 inches deep, and sometimes in DC, like 12 or 13 inches deep. And, you know, be careful when you see those might not be real fireplaces, even though it looks like a fireplace. Firebox dimensions right out of the NFPA 211. If you have a firebox that is equal to or greater than 6 square inches, the outer hearth has to go out 20 inches and 12 inches on the sides. Whoops. If you have a fireplace that is less than 6 square feet, then it's 16 inches in front and 8 inches on either side. And that's in the NFPA 211. Clearance to combustibles. So where the trim sticks out, and we're talking about the top part of the fireplace, where the trim sticks out more than 1.5 inches, then you've got to be 12 inches above the fireplace before you install any trim. If it is less than 1.5 inches, then it's 6 inches from the top. It's always 6 inches on the sides. Smoke chamber, total thickness of the front, back, and side wall shall be 8 inches thick unless you're using fire brick, and then it's 6 inches, or unless you're going 6 inches thick with masonry and then 5/8 with refractory cement. And then it's got to be parged smooth. I mean, one of the great things about parging it smooth, looks better, protects, and smoke can get up faster. What is the #1 cause of creosote? Residence time. What is causing a lot of problems with us fireplace guys is they are sealing up the houses tighter. People are doing energy audits. Houses are tight, not getting enough air. If it's not getting enough air in, it's just chimney physics. You don't get the air out, and you get more creosote. Smoke chamber shall be as tall as the firebox is wide, and it shall not incline more than 45 degrees. Masonry chimneys shall be lined. Clay flue lining's got to meet ASTM 315. Stainless steel's got to meet UL 1777. Then there are other approved methods, cast in place, heat shield when you've got a sleeve inside. Those have to meet, you know, corrosion resistant erosion, temperatures 1800 degrees. It's really 1100 degrees intermittent, 1800 degrees, you know, once. Terracotta clay flue tiles are the most common lining system for masonry fireplaces. They must not slope greater than 30 degrees when you are installing them, and they've got to have a mortar joint with refractory cement meeting ASTM C199. If you're going to reline with stainless steel and you're going to take the old liners out, which is really the best idea if it's for a fireplace, because you got to get the big enough liner in, then you're going to install it, and then you're going to use a poured insulation around it. You're going to follow the manufacturer's installation instructions. You know, in this market, the best practice is you don't have to insulate when you're relining a gas furnace, because we're not that cold. You go up north, yes, all the time you have to do it. Is it better to do it every time? Of course. But do we have to do it? No. And guess what? A lot of people don't do it. Basically, some people say, well, what is that insulation? Well, it's basically vermiculite and Portland cement dry mixed, and they put it in a bag, and then you pour it into a mixing pan, mix it with water, and then pour that around the liner. And that's what it looks like. A lot of pre-insulated liners are now in use, and it makes it a lot easier when you're doing wood stoves and when you're doing some furnaces, if there's enough room. Termination of a standard masonry fireplace in the Washington, D.C. market. You guys have seen thousands of them from the ground. Usually you're not going up top. Mason Light fireplace is a modular fireplace. And these are made out of masonry products. Isocurrent talks about theirs having Icelandic pumice in it, but it's a lighter weight concrete modular system. I've seen them going straight up with their modular flues, and they all fit together. Most of the time, we attach factory-built fireplaces, chimney pipes to them. That's going to be air-cooled. For a fireplace that size, I mean, the math is pretty simple. It's, 110 ratio when it's square, 112 ratio when it's round, but usually they're 12 inches in diameter for something that size. And you can do all kinds of different things on the interior. So you've got, interior of the firebox looks like that. Here's a really badass, high-end fireplace with beautiful herringbone pattern, gorgeous, and then you've got some old style look there. And then here's a commercial application. But it terminates at the top, just like a factory-built fireplace would terminate, because it is factory-built chimney that we're using. Factory-built fireplaces. So factory-built fireplaces shall be listed, labeled, and installed in accordance with UL 127. Factory-built fireplaces shall be installed by the manufacturer's installation instructions. Now, Fairfax County came out a while ago, and the code said, 1.5 inches, and they said, well, we want 2 inches. So that was the Virginia code says that, even though the manufacturer's instructions say 1.5 inches, Fairfax County wanted 2 inches. Well, guess what? We install them at 2 inches. Can't get them passed. So yeah, let's look at back here. So this is a smooth face. So it's ready to have your tile installed, your lick it and stick it stone, whatever. Smooth face, those are, newer. People like those better because you get a better look of a real masonry fireplace. That's old school right there. And those louvers are there. People say, hey, is there a blower in there? Sometimes there are blowers in there. Do they really produce a lot of heat? No, they don't. But you cannot cover up those louvers. They shall not be covered. Another high-end fireplace before the venting's installed. Another high-end unit. The interior of that brand looks better than some of the other ones. And then that's just a standard factory-built unit there. When you roll up on these, you're like, wow, that's, looks like a masonry fireplace. Then you go in tight and you look and say, oh, those are refractory panels. So air insulated factory built chimney pipe. It's got a rating of up to 1700 degrees. It's galvanized outer piece, usually 12 inches in diameter. And then it's usually 8 inches on the stainless steel inner piece, air cooled. Here's what it looks like installed. So we were just taking an old chase cover off that was leaking, putting a new chase cover on, and then we have a look down inside. Want to make sure there's no construction debris on top, make sure there's no clearance to combustibles, make sure that we've got everything secured as it should be. And that's the way that it's terminated. You're going to get fooled, though, because sometimes you go into some of these really upscale neighborhoods where they built brick units, brick houses, and they put factory built chimneys on the inside. So you're like, oh, is that a masonry chimney? No, it's not. But they've cheaped out with a fireplace, but they did the entire house in brick. Just putting a system together here. You've got a brand new chase cover, and it has a collar. Then you've got a storm collar, and then he's putting the cap back on the air-cooled chimney. You also have high-end, so if we're just trying to identify some things, you're walking in the house and it's like, what the hell is that? Is that a built-in wood stove? Well, that's essentially what it is. You guys have probably seen them. We love to install those because the homeowners adore them. People that like wood stoves but have a factory built unit, you can tear the factory built unit out, invest some money into a high-end zero clearance unit, and that is basically a wood stove that is installed into a stud wall system. And then it vents into different chimney pipe. That's going to be a stainless steel inner, stainless steel outer, dense pack insulation. Sometimes we call it a Class A chimney. Sometimes we call it a 2100 chimney because of 2100 degrees that it's rated at, or we call it high temp. We're going to come back and look at those later. So here's the installation. You've got non-combustible studs that must be installed at the top of these things because of the heat. We usually just go ahead and put them all around because we already had to go and buy them. So let's just go ahead and install those all the way around because those units get super hot. Now, if you notice on top, it's got 3 holes. It also has holes down below. So the middle hole, that's for the venting. The other holes are for gravity-fed heat to go up into another room or a room upstairs. On some of these units, you can install fans to actually pull the air into the other rooms. You're looking at about 20 grand for an install, but it is badass and it's just wonderful heat. So those were the wood burning units. There are many other wood burning units and even more gas. We don't have time to get into them all today. Most of the units will take gas log sets. The older ones, not so much, but most all new systems do, but not everything. So check the manufacturer's installation instructions. Let's talk about gas logs. So 2 types, really, vented and ventless or vent-free. And vented and vent-free can be either gas or propane. This is a masonry fireplace with a vented set of gas logs. A vent-free gas log set in a high-end factory-built fireplace, and then a vent-free gas log set in a masonry fireplace. That is the most realistic picture of what vent-free really looks like. They've gotten way better, but they're not going to be big flames. Damper blocks, I'm sure you guys have seen them when you take a look up inside. Even if you've got an electronic pilot system, you still have to have the damper blocks. Simple as that. Got a factory built on your left-hand side, masonry on your right. You're not supposed to be able to close the damper. It needs to have at least an inch opening. And then some people don't know this, but you're supposed to open up your dampers if you got a vented gas log set. Some people leave the dampers closed and they don't understand it's supposed to be open. That's just a standard, set for gas logs. You've got 2 areas, front and back, where the front and middle, where the flames come out, and a pilot assembly over there on the right-hand side. The new gas log sets are all coming with remote controls because, hey, the guys like remote controls. Click, click, click up with the flame, click, click, click down with the flame. And if we're going to have those, then we need a receiver that goes into the firebox. And that's the thing on your right-hand side here. Come on, let me see that right there. Now, those are going to melt unless you protect them. So as an installer, we put them inside the little fake log sets. Vent-free gas logs. So that one's got a screen in front. A lot of the new stuff does have screens because stupid children have burned themselves. I think it's a great way of teaching kids, not to touch hot things. You should have seen what we did with the wood stove in my house when I was teaching my son and he was screaming and crying but I got his hand within, a couple inches, and his mom was, trying to pull away from me. But that kid never touched that wood stove after that. You figured out it was hot. Moving on. That's what you see when you normally see a all-in-one vent-free system. It's in a cabinet. They got a lot of corner units in Loudoun County, and you run into those. And sometimes, you look straight in and you can reach in and touch the log set. And then you're like, where is it venting? It vents nowhere. It is ventless if it vents nowhere, but really it vents into the room, which is kind of a bummer. We're going to talk about that. So vented gas logs vent up the chimney and out into the atmosphere. Vent-free logs vent directly into the room. Well, it's a good thing because you do get more heat that way. That's for sure. But both can be installed into masonry or factory-built fireplaces. Both can be natural or propane gas, but vent-free has a very unpleasant odor. We, as a company, will not install vent-free into someone's home unless we're replacing a vent-free system. And even then we're like, these things stink. I know. We've got one already. My wife loves it. Fine. We'll do it because we put them in, and it hasn't been in writing that these produce, a bad smell. And all of a sudden the wife says, I don't like that. Well, you signed the paper that you liked it. Everything was fine. And then we got to take it out. And that's what you do. So it's got an unpleasant odor, and then you've got to meet the air volume rules. It's going to be in the manufacturer's installation instructions, and you need to do your calculations. Best way to tell the type of unit that it is look at the tag. It's attached to it in the back. At least it should be. And that one doesn't say anything about it being ventless. So if it doesn't say ventless, it must be vented. Also, you guys are walking in blind all the time, and I'm sure you already do it, but you see a unit in there and you're like, hey, you got the owner's manual for that? 9 times out of 10, they're not going to have it, but there's some smart little engineer and lawyer types, and they keep nice files of all kinds of things. And then you'd find out, hey, what is this thing? Oh, this one is a vent-free gas log set. So now we're going to talk about gas fireplaces. So the most popular fireplace now is the direct vent gas fireplace. This particular unit is a modern style. It's rectangular. Here's another one. I think that's a great looking unit. I like how it's open on 3 sides. It's all glass. Standard, looking unit. I got a standard looking unit in my house. And how does it work? Okay. You've got a pipe. The venting is a pipe within a pipe. Outer pipe. Outer pipe, 8 inches in diameter, approximately inside, 5 inches. Top, this is a top venting kit, goes out. So air comes in around the 5-inch pipe, goes down, aids in combustion. Then exhaust goes up inside the 5-inch and out. If you look at the picture down here, we call that a doghouse. It's got a side venting termination cap. And here's what the pipe looks like, and there's a cap. This unit is a insert. So an insert means that it's inserted. The gas insert is inserted into a masonry compliant, code compliant system. So you got a wood burning fireplace downstairs. You replaced all your windows, and now your stupid fireplace doesn't draw anymore, and it smokes back into the house. But hey, that's kind of your room down there, and you want some heat to it. Best thing to do is to put a gas insert down there, and the venting is going to be slightly different. It's called coaxial venting, is the pipe within a pipe. This is collinear, and you can put a gas insert right inside, hook it up, run it up to the top of the masonry chimney, and you're good to go. These are not to be installed inside of factory built units. And here's what the pieces look like for the insert.
Can you define code compliance?
Look in the NFPA 211, and that's where all the codes are. You know, it's supposed to be code compliant, means it's not supposed to have any breaches or voids.
In the original Fireplace?
Yeah.
No.
And then usually in the manufacturing installation instructions, it says for installation into code compliant masonry chimney. But you know when they're really installed? When the homeowner says, when we, you know, present a bid for $7,000 to repair it, and they're like, "Ah, that's crazy. You know, we don't even use it." Well, would you use it if we put a, you know, a gas unit in there? And they're like, yeah, you know, and then sometimes gas units are installed in, you know, really not code compliant systems, but it's just the way the world works. We try not to do that.
But the code compliance still required, even though you've got an exhaust and an air intake going all the way up to through the chimney.
You know, we can go round and round and round and round, you know, and I love you, Lou, but you know, it's code compliant is code compliant. And, you know, I try to train my guys that, you know, let's not get caught.
Yeah.
I'm too old. I don't want to get caught doing something stupid. But that's what that looks like. Here's another fireplace, another direct vent, traditional style, another traditional style. So you can't reach in. It's all covered with glass. Can't touch anything. So direct vent gas fireplaces are designed to bring air in from the outside, not the home, and are sealed with a piece of glass in front or all the sides, which allow the system to meet today's energy requirements. So if you're a builder, you know, you want the Energy Star rating. Can't get the Energy Star rating with open fireplaces. If you're building, you know, spec homes, you're not going to do that. Yes.
So a question from online is, are gas log starters approved and still meet the damper block?
So you're talking about, so are they just talking about the single pipe that you use for wood starters?
Sean? Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen those. Someone else asked about that. We don't install them. We had one in Kansas City and we loved it, but I don't see a lot of those here. And I don't think that they meet any code. So we don't install them. So I don't know, maybe there's some smarter people here than me that know that, but I don't think they meet code, even though I've seen them, you know. There it is.
Do you prefer the questions to come to you as they come in, or would you like them more at the end?
You know, I got 10 minutes at the end. You know, is normally when I do it.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Would you like the questions from here that they're asking them?
Sure. That's why
Okay.
we're here, is to learn, right?
Okay, Remy, go ahead.
Yeah, let me get my mic on here. Is there what type of protection do the new non-vented fireplaces have for prevention of carbon monoxide or any other air quality issues? Are there types of sensors that are now built into the new non-vented units?
I don't know of anything like that. You know what's freaking crazy is when because we bring people in for training all the time. We have the biggest fireplace company in the DC market. So we got people coming in all the time trying to sell us shit. And we've had these guys come in and they're like, and they sell ventless gas logs. And we're all like, ah. And these guys are like, no, they're the greatest things ever. They're completely safe. You know, they've been through all of the testing. Yet you still can't get them installed. Of course, no, codes aren't perfect. But you can't install them in bathrooms, you can't install them in bedrooms. You know, they stink like hell. I mean, all the time. We bought a brand new house before I changed the fireplace out, and it had that it had a ventless gas log system. I turned it on, and then my wife and I are looking in the kitchen, and then she said, "What is that smell?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's over there." I turned on the gas fireplace because, we're going to have to change that out. Women have more sensitive noses than men, but we can still smell that stuff. And these guys say that they're completely safe. That's all it is. They say it's safe. We install them only if somebody else already has them. And they are safe, but you're also supposed to have a carbon monoxide detector in the house. And I had an older set a long time ago in a smaller little fireplace in a side small 3-season room. And it was a small room, and that system would shut off. So I think there's sensors in there, and they'll shut off themselves. Yes, sir.
Do I correctly recall, as I sort of recall, about 20 or 30, maybe 30 years ago, about 2, 3 or 4 of the primary manufacturers of prefabricated fireplaces got together and sort of entered into pact, and they all ceased manufacturing non-vented units. Does that ring a bell?
Nope. But that's, I believe anything and everything. When it comes to what manufacturers and the hoops that they've had to go through with the EPA and the things that they will need to do in order to, usually it's the wood stove manufacturers that are the ones that are getting completely screwed by the EPA and them trying to take away our freedom to burn. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm never going to get fucking going if you're going to keep asking questions. I'm never going to get through.
Would you rather just keep?
I mean, I'm just saying, we have to have a balance. We got to have a balance, or I'm not going to.
We can bring some of these questions in a little bit later, continue on, and
Yeah.
we'll get back to them.
Okay. So gas inserts can be inserted into masonry fireplaces for more heat if you have natural propane gas in the house. Just like a wood stove insert, the gas insert fits right into the fireplace, has its own venting, and you don't have to mess with wood anymore. This is what it looks like. It's a box within a box, just like a factory-built fireplace is a box within a box. So is this. It's got panels inside, and instead of it being empty with a grate, it has a grate for logs. A lot of these units have blowers, and so you need to plug it in. Then you've got a surround and a trim piece. This is what they look like. One of the things that you're going to see usually when you're looking at going in to see a unit like sitting there like that, you're like, is that a direct vent gas fireplace? Well, yes, but is it an insert? Well, if you checked around the house and you can see a chimney, it's probably venting there. The other thing to look at is the outer hearth. So if there's an outer hearth, that's probably a gas insert. If it's a wood floor, it's probably a direct vent gas fireplace, because direct vent gas fireplaces don't need hearths. Another unit, again, it's got an outer hearth. Another unit, it's an insert, it's got an outer hearth there. Too many gas fireplaces really to cover all of those also, but we got a taste of them today. When you come into someone's house, you don't know what it is, just ask for the owner's manual, or you can look underneath and sometimes find some information on a tag somewhere down there. Also remember, these factory-built fireplaces, direct vent gas fireplaces, if you want to, you're poking around and you want to take that glass off, be super careful. That glass is the single most expensive part of the entire gas fireplace. It's between $650 and $700 for a piece of that glass. So, okay, levels of inspection. The new 2024 is baby blue. The old one was red. Why do they change it? I don't know. But it's going to have the levels of inspection for us. Level 1 inspection, going to have to read this. It is, very specific. And if I'm going to teach you about it, I'm going to read it. Level 1 inspection shall be utilized when verification of the suitability of the chimney or flue for continued service under the same conditions with the same or similar appliance or appliances is needed. During an annual inspection, during a routine cleaning, at the time of a replacement of a connected appliance, that's when you do a level 1. Level 1 scope and access. Level 1 shall include the examination of readily accessible portions of the chimney and accessible portions of the connected appliances. The chimney exterior surroundings shall be inspected at locations that can be accessed. So if it's huge house in Potomac or Great Falls or wherever, and we can't get to the top, because it's 4 stories plus, then we're not going to, in level 1, we're not going to get to the top. Can't do it. If we got to come back and build scaffolding, great. We'll come back and build scaffolding and charge the customer for it. We'll use a lift to charge the customer for it. Where there's panels or doors or coverings, where they're opened as part of the performance of another task, such as the chimney cleaning, those situations that we can look at, those locations can be examined as part of a level 1. Level 1 readily accessible areas of the chimney flue that can be observed through existing openings as a thimble, clean out, flue termination at the top shall be examined for the presence of a continuous flue, proper installation, and no damage. A level 1, again, verification of suitability of the chimney for continued service with the same appliance or, very similar. Level 2, all the same things of a level 1, same accessible portions, same enclosed flues, but we're going to look inside. We're going to look inside the flues, proper clearance for combustion in accessible locations, size and suitability of the flues to connected appliances. All accessible portions of the chimney, exterior and interior, including areas. And here's where you don't go to level 1. You don't go into the attic, don't have to go into the attic, don't have to go into a crawl space, don't have to go into the basement, but you do with a level 2. Upon addition or removal of one or more of the appliances or replacement of an appliance, you got to do a level 2. So a new appliance with a different input rating, a different efficiency, before we put a new liner in, and when we, upon a sale or transfer of the property, which is all you guys. Indication, verification, suitability of the chimney for new or changed conditions of service. Inspection, a level 1's not sufficient for that, and that's why I have to do a level 2. Level 3, basically, it's everything in a level 1 and a level 2, but something happened. We smelled smoke where we didn't smell smoke before. The customer believes something happened. There was an earthquake. There was a chimney fire. There was a fire. Now we got to go in and we got to take down walls. We got to go into ceilings. That's what a level 3 means. You got to go in there and take stuff down and look inside. We just get through that even quicker. Inspection process. The inspection process changes depending on what you're inspecting. You guys do more inspecting, than we do. Your inspection process changes depending upon, some important pieces as far as your business is concerned. With us, a masonry fireplace inspection is going to be different than a factory built, which is going to be different than a wood stove, which is going to be different than a freestanding stove, which is going to be different than a gas fireplace. Let's start for our inspection process of a level 1 in a masonry fireplace. We're going to go in after we set up our little drop cloth, and we're going to look inside the fireplace with a flashlight. We're going to look at all the walls. We look at all the mortar joints. We're going to look up, in at the breast of the chimney. So our head's going to go in. Breast is here. We're going to look at the throat. We're looking for areas that are open, areas that should be parged smooth. Anything that's broken, we're going to look at all that. Smoke chamber, base of the liner, are there gaps around it? All that stuff. And then we're going to get our tape measure. We're going to start measuring. We're going to measure the depth of the firebox. We're going to measure the firebox opening. We're going to measure the clearance, the distance from the damper to the liner and the clearance to combustibles in the front on the face. We're going to look at all of those areas. And then the outer hearth dimensions. Then we're going to go down to the basement and we're going to see, hey, what's attached down here? And for us, if we can, we're going to pull the pipe and we're going to look inside that flue. If this is like inside the beltway and they're actually venting boilers and water heaters into chimneys. And then we're going to also be down in the basement. We're going to look up. We're going to look at that outer hearth. And we're going to look and see, is there still wood attached there? Because there was wood there when they poured the outer hearth in the base for the fireplace. And if there's wood there, what does it look like? Is it charred? What kind of condition is it in? Can we kind of grab it a little bit? Could we take it down? Because we prefer it to be down and not be connected. But if we take it down, are we going to bring down the hearth with it? We're going to take a look at those things. Then we're going to go to the top of the chimney and we're going to check out everything up there. We're going to look down inside the flue with a flashlight. We're going to measure the distance of the flue. We're going to look at the other flues. We're going to measure how close the other flue is, how the flues are to one another. We're going to take a measurement of the actual crown itself, length times width. And we're going to take a look at, all those things. And then, how tall is the chimney off the roof? It doesn't meet 3-2-10. 3 feet above the roof line, 2 feet above anything within 10 feet. And then if it's a level 2, now I got to go up into the attic and I got to go into a crawl space. So if I'm going into the attic, chimneys are going to be either interior chimneys, which means they're not going to be attached to the envelope of the house. So I'm going to be able to do a 360 all around it. That's 2 inches clearance to combustible. So where it goes through the roof, where there's any rafters, supposed to be 2 inches away. If it's an interior chimney, so it's actually attached, you walk around, you walk outside and it's attached to the house and it sticks out, that's attached to the envelope of the house. It's called an interior chimney or exterior chimney. And that's going to be 1 inch clearance to combustible. And then you're going to go in the crawl space and you're going to look for damage. You're going to look for water damage. You're going to look for broken bricks, any problems with anything down there, anything that looks weird. Just like you, sometimes we're inspectors when we're not going to fix anything. We're going to hand it off to somebody else. And a foundation, just like you, we're going to hand off to somebody else. Say, you need to call someone for that. Sometimes we don't fix things. A lot of times there's a lot of things that we don't fix. We hand it off. So then also level 2, now we're going to use a video camera or other means necessary to look inside the flue. As part of the level 2, we got to look inside. We're going to be looking for cracking, flaking, broken, cracked, discolored flues, missing mortar joints. Does the flue change sides? Does it change directions? Are there any voids or breaches in between the flue tiles? Did a plumber install set of gas logs upstairs and run the pipe right through the furnace flue or the downstairs fireplace flue? All the time they do that. And electricians do funny things too with wires. There's all kinds of things, all kinds of wires and pipes through the flues at the U.S. Capitol building. Tons. So what are our limitations? Ours are similar to yours, except we usually get on the roof. But snow on the roof, wet cedar shakes, wet metal roof, no access without a lift because it's too tall, damper's too small, can't get our cameras through there. Shroud that's actually attached to the top of the chimney, and we're not going to take the shroud off because it's 8 feet by 3 feet. We're not going to take it off, so we can't look at the top. Animals, dead animals, insects, all kinds of things. Large amounts of stage 3 creosote means, hey, we can't really see anything, so we're going to want to clean it first, and then we'll inspect it. recognizing deficiencies and malfunctions. So how much time do I have left? I got 10 minutes. And we got to rock and roll through this. This is the highlight reel. Oil burning flue changed to gas. So it's oil burning, a lot of sulfur in there, byproduct burning natural gas, water vapor, mild sulfuric acid paste will destroy terracotta clay flues. We just talked about that. Mild sulfuric acid paste. It'll also destroy aluminum liners. So our brethren in HVAC, they install flue liners for their boilers and their furnaces, and they love aluminum. We hate aluminum because it's trash. It's $125 for a liner, and you put it inside one of those flues that used to have oil in it, and that's what it looks like after a year. This is pretty simple for us. You guys roll into that. You see, okay, negative slope. We need a 1/4 inch rise for our water heater. Obviously, it's an old boiler down there with a gas water heater. You know, somebody put duct tape on there. You know, well, let me ask you a question. Are you supposed to see any connector pipes with any sort of tape on them? No. Bozo, no. No tape. We got caught, one of our dummies put some tape on it and it failed inspection. No pass-through here. That's single wall. You know, even if it were B-vent and has a 1-inch clearance to combustible, it should have a wall pass-through. This happens a lot down in DC where they're trying to enclose that little room and make a living room out of it or a bedroom. Here, ceiling penetration should also have something. It's not, that is B-vent there. You know, right up against, it's a gas vent, single wall, but it's right up against insulation. Typical down in Arlington. I'm worried about the bottom two, the water heater and the furnace. You know, there's no way that those are going to meet the clearance to combustibles. Let's go ahead and look at the numbers. Single wall galvanized gas going to be 6 inches. Single wall galvanized pipe with venting oil, 9 inches. B vent, 1 inch. L vent, which is for oil, that's 3 inches. And then the new Pellet Pro, that's 1 inch clearance to combustibles. Interior of the flues. This is a furnace flue, actually, and it's got cracked clay flue liners. How did that happen? I don't know. An event occurred. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. There's no evidence. There's no honeycombed, there's no chimney fire. They don't have any honeycombed, creosote. Something happened. I don't know. I wasn't there. Hey, that looks pretty good. Straight down there. Nice and straight. Then you get all the way down at the bottom and put a camera inside and you got missing mortar joints. So just because it looks good from the top doesn't mean that it is. Pull the crock, pull the thimble, that's old oil. Still an oil flue. You see that crazy green discharge and just destroying the terracotta clay flue tile. Unlined flues. You don't see as many of these as you used to 20 years ago. Factory built fireplace, just destroyed. It's the two different fireplaces, one that's barely been used and one that was used. And I don't know what the hell happened, but something got to it. Here, oops, they continue to use that one long after. I think that was after that was like a couple years after the earthquake, and it jumbled it loose.
Find a beer bottle nearby?
Oh, quite possibly. Quite possibly. Again, these air vents, they can't be covered. And here, look at this gem. Thank God they never used it, because it was somebody redid a restoration job on this basement and installed this unit, and they left all the construction debris on top. They also left this standoff right here. They moved it. It should be underneath here to protect that wood from touching the fireplace. Well, they removed it with the screws and they just put it over there. And maybe the inspector won't see it. Video inspections inside factory built. The one on the left looks great. The one on the right, something happened. Either that's improper installation or something else happened. Here's the solid pack installation, the HT high temperature pipes that we saw before. Look at the colors right here. It looks purple. It looks brown. What is that? Well, that was for a wood stove unit. That's called intergranular corrosion. So there was a chimney fire here. We had the evidence. We had the creosote, and then we had the fact that the fire department was there. So we had the evidence. We know there was a chimney fire. So we called it a chimney fire, and the chimney fire was contained for the most part. There still was damage inside this pipe, and it reaches over 3,000 degrees, and it changes the chemical composition of the stainless steel, and it turns it purple brown. And it, it's now misshapen and falling apart. But for the most part, it did its job. Refractory panels, you see them all the time. What do? There's little cracks in there. Hairline cracks are fine. Nothing wrong with a hairline crack. Doesn't do a damn thing. There's nothing wrong with it. But manufacturers themselves can't agree on how big of the crack. So some say a dime, some say a quarter, some say a nickel, some say a penny. We say a coin. If you can fit a coin in there, probably should replace it. Pretty simple. Fit a coin in there, you probably replace it. Normal, it's hard to see that. It's normal. We got natural gas, ventless log set there. Pretty normal operation. Then we changed it out. We were doing a test. Then we changed it out. And instead of it being natural gas, we hooked up propane to it. And some of you that know about gas fittings say they wouldn't be able to attach it. Well, some people are crazy and will say that the engineers who designed it are stupid. And they'll say, well, I can change it. It should be this. Well, we did that, and we changed the fittings. And then instead of it being 35,000 BTUs, it was about 160. Yeah. So that's a problem. That's a problem. If that was at our house and it was, our hunting cabin, that'd be fucking awesome. That'd be great. We'd love it. We can do that. 2 minutes or 2 questions. 2 minutes. Yeah, we're almost done. Here, you've got to replace chase covers, water. It's what happens when they get old. Here, what's the problem? You got clearance to combustibles. We can look right here and tell you, yeah, that's a bozo no-no. Also, if the picture was clear, you could tell they got water problems. Looking up inside the damper, I see a flue next to me. Does that flue go down to the basement? It's either a furnace flue or another fireplace flue. That's a problem. Things falling apart inside the smoke chamber. That's the breast area. That's the lintel right there. So I go to look in and I look right up. All kinds of nooks and crannies in there where smoke and heat and sparks should not be going. Somebody installed a new liner. They stuffed it with some foil face wrap, but they never parged it smooth. They never finished the job, probably because it was this tiny smoke chamber and they didn't want to take the damper out and take the rear wall down. They didn't want to do the work. This was after a chimney fire and you got shattered terracotta clay. This is a look from a different fire and it had cavitated the entire system. We already talked about 2 inches for interior chimneys, 1 inch for exterior clearance to combustibles. Nope, I'm going to say that I don't have my clearance there, but looks like I got my clearance there. Masonry, exterior, you guys aren't doing a lot of that. Higher BTUs are always supposed to go in the bottom. Someone did an install, they put the higher BTU on the top because the water heater is going to be smaller. That one's just venting into no man's land. That's a fireplace that's got water issues. That's an old slammer wood stove. Took the wood stove out. It wasn't vented in, wasn't vented into anything, wasn't vented into a pipe, taking it just up to the bottom of the flue tile. It wasn't taken all the way to the top, and it just created large amounts of third stage creosote. That's the fireplace that I told you is not a fireplace. That's in, you're gonna see a lot of those in DC. And that is a little lining. You pull that out, it's like a decorative, you pull that out and you're like, there's brick back there. This is the fireplace. No, it's not. That's a single wall. And that gas there used to attach to a basket, and they'd have these gas baskets that they would use. And that's probably only 13 inches deep. You see one like that, it's just like if you see, you know, a woman with an Adam's apple. It ain't what you think it is. That's not a chimney. Just be careful. That's a dude. And this one, hey, did this just happen, you know, because someone was in the house, didn't know how to use the fireplace and didn't open the damper? Or is that over years of use? You know, I don't know. I wasn't there, but something's wrong. And then this is probably the last one we have time for. This is a guy that installed his own factory-built fireplace in his garage. So that's, you're looking at the ass end of it. The pipe, you can't really tell here, but the pipe is right up against the drywall. And it's got gas cans in his garage. So I just got some, you know, more pictures like that. Do we have any time for any questions? No time for any questions? Oh,
I have one.
sure.
On your prefab or manufactured fireplaces, do they have an average service life?
Everything has an average service life. And if they're actually using it, it's just like the 67 Mustang in the garage. If it's under a cover and hasn't been used, you know, in 30 years, you're probably good to go. You just need to get someone to get it started for you. But if they've been using it, the service life is going to be 20 years, you know, and nothing lasts longer than that now. So we're having a lot of that issues in Loudoun County with gas fireplaces, where they want us to replace the entire guts of the system. And it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. You know, I want to replace the entire unit. Yes, sir.
Ash dumps for wood burning fireplaces. See a lot of them where people don't even know about it. You go down, you open them up and they're packed, and they wonder why they have all this efflorescence around or paint won't stick. And I'm like, look, it's 30, 40 years worth of ashes down here. I cleaned out one. I knew exactly what cigarettes they smoked.
Yeah.
Threw down the
Well, and there it is. So you've got ashes, and then it's subterranean. So anything that's subterranean is going to be, if it's masonry, it's going to be absorbing, you know, water. Yes.
We ended up with one. On a relined site-built fireplace, can mineral wool type insulation be visible around the new liner from the firebox when looking up the flue?
So we showed a picture of that, and it was foil faced. So yes, you know, but it's not a best practice. Does it meet the code? Yeah, because what you did is you sealed around the base of the liner. So it's sealed, and it's sealed with a non-combustible. So it's sealed. And then if there's any refractory cement, anything that, any thermix or insulation that's poured down, it's not going to come through. So it's a best practice is to parge it smooth, but it does meet the code.
Thank you very much.
All right, and just for 1 minute, I want to talk about Sweep Away Cancer. 1 minute. So Sweep Away Cancer is an organization that a couple of my buddies started because one of our chimney professional buddies was dying of cancer. And so we did, and he couldn't pay his bills because that's the problem with our industry. It's a bunch of one truck chucks, you know, and if you, similar to this business, so you twist your ankle, you're out of work. You get cancer, you're out of work. And that's what happened to him. And so they did a GoFundMe and took care of him. And then they started a 5013C. And they, over the past 4 years, we've raised $350,000. And we've sent that to people in $5,000 checks when they needed help because they couldn't pay their bills because they were suffering from cancer, whether they were related to the chimney industry or not. So we're doing a fundraiser. I've got information here. We're doing it at the Tower Club on May 1st. We've got live auction. We've got some other auction items that we're going to raffle off, and we're trying to raise money because obviously there's more people out there that are dying and not being able to pay their bills because they've got cancer than there are people trying to do the right thing, which is what I'm trying to do. So that's it. So if you want to see it, I'll give it to you. Thank you.